The Mothman, described as a man-bird hybrid cryptoid, terrorized the town of Point Pleasant, West Virginia from 1966 to 1967. It is said after the tragic collapse of the Silver Bridge in 1967, Mothman disappeared, never to return. Did he actually disappear? Or is he still around today? What's up, weirdos? My name is Alanna, and tonight I'll be spinning the tale of the man-bird, myth, and pop culture icon, the Mothman. Now, a majority of our tale takes place in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. It's a small rural town with about a population of 5,000. Everyone knows everyone. Everyone knows everyone's business. It is quoted to be a friendly small town with a unique history. Part of the unique history of Point Pleasant, West Virginia isn't just their famous friend, the Mothman. In the 1940s, Point Pleasant, West Virginia housed the United States World War II munitions plant. The residents of Point Pleasant were used to employ this plant to build TNT and atomic bombs during World War II. It is said that on August 6, 1945, the facility mysteriously closed conveniently on the same day of the atomic bombing of Hiroshima. After the facility was closed and abandoned in the 1940s, residents dubbed the area the TNT area for the abandoned bunkers that are still filled with TNT and chemicals used to make the atomic bombs in World War II. The first reported sighting of Mothman occurred in Clinton, West Virginia, about 80 miles outside of Point Pleasant. Some people think that's a large distance, but for a man with wings, it probably really isn't. 5 grave diggers on a foggy fall night in a cemetery working witnessed a man with wings. Keith Duncan, one of the grave diggers, reported that the man glided through the trees for about a minute before he vanished. The most notorious sighting of Mothman occurred 3 nights later, on November 15th, 1966, in that TNT area in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. 2 couples, Roger and Linda Scarberry and Steve and Mary Millette, were driving around with their cousin Lonnie and Roger's 57 Chevy, his prized possession. They were just out having a good time, driving around in the middle of rural West Virginia, because what else was there to do on a Saturday night in the middle of West Virginia? Roger stated that while he was driving down Route 62 in the middle of the TNT area, he drove up upon a large man with wings. He stated that the man was standing in the middle of the road, and as he got closer and the lights hit the man jumped off the road. They thought that was the last sightings of the man with wings, but little did they know their terror was not going to end there. A few minutes later, still driving through that TNT area, Roger looked in his rearview mirror and guess who he had seen? His good old friend, the Mothman. The creature was flying behind him with his glowing red eyes, chasing the car. Roger tried to outchase the Mothman. However, he reached up speeds of 100 miles per hour, and Mothman was still able to catch up. It is said that Mothman also scratched into the roof of his prized possession car. I don't know, if I was Roger Scarberry and I was like, oh, look, a giant man-bird with glowing eyes on the road, like, I don't know if I'd be trying to, race it. I don't know if I'd stop either. I don't know what I would do. Ew. Once the car exited the TNT area, the Mothman was nowhere to be seen. Next thing that they did was they drove immediately to the police station. Around 2 a.m. on that night, they all 5 were separated and interviewed individually. And all 5 people had the same reports of a large 7-foot man with about 10-foot wingspan and glowing red eyes that terrorized them that evening. After all 5 interviews were collected, the police went back to the TNT area and could find no evidence of the events that occurred or the creature described. The next day, their story was the front page of the local paper. So after the initial dozen reports in the first week, the governor of West Virginia caught wind of the sightings of Mothman and wasn't too keen on it. So he tried to discount the reports of this amazing creature. He even called in a biologist from West Virginia University to try to explain this. Dr. Robert L. Smith, a biologist from West Virginia University, tried to explain Mothman was just a sandhill crane and there was no need to worry. Okay, so this is a sandhill crane. this is Mothman. There is no way you can tell me that a normal sandhill crane is Mothman. It's impossible. I can only think of one reasoning to explain it with this sandhill crane theory. So the only way this sandhill crane really fits this narrative is if it's a mutation because of the chemicals that are in that area. So remember, all these sightings are in the TNT area where all those chemicals were used to make atomic bombs. There is a chance that those chemicals did run off into the Ohio River that's very close to Point Pleasant, and those chemicals could have caused a genetic mutation. Now, the sandhill cranes are described with red patches around their eyes and usually have a 6.5 feet wingspan. So it could be a crazy abnormality. However, a normal sandhill crane ain't gonna fit the bill for Mothman. So let's say that the mutated bird theory for Mothman is correct. What the mutated bird theory doesn't explain is the men in black questioning witnesses, the sightings of UFOs, and the electrical frequency abnormalities that happened in Point Pleasant, West Virginia over the 13 months that Mothman stayed there. More than 100 sightings of the Mothman, including sightings of UFOs and the men in black, were reported in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. The local newspapers had a huge part in getting the story out about these anomalies. We're making reports every day. Pat Siller, one of the copyright editors in a local newspaper, is the king of how Mothman got his name. He actually named Mothman after the popular 1960s comic book Batman. They tried to name it other things like the Mason Birdman monster, but nothing stuck like the Mothman. One of the 100 sightings was including a man who let his new German Shepherd dog out to the bathroom, went outside, saw the Mothman, and then a few minutes later, his dog was gone. He also experienced those electrical interferences we were talking about and visits from the Men in Black. And when I say Men in Black, I mean yes, like what you see in the Men in Black movie, like sunglasses, black suit, white shirt, black tie, real sketchy. Real sketch. Mary Hyre, a writer for the Athens Messenger, was also a huge catalyst in putting the story out about Mothman. Her column, Where the Waters Mingle, is where a majority of the Mothman stories are. It is also said that Mary was harassed by the Men in Black and told to stop publishing the stories. But it didn't stop her. She continued to publish the stories until the sightings ended in 1967. Unfortunately, she died in 1978 due to medical complications. All these sightings led to a crescendo on December 15th, 1967, with the collapse of the Silver Bridge. Now, the Silver Bridge crossed the Ohio River and connected Point Pleasant, West Virginia with Ohio. It was a busy bridge for that small town and is where a majority of the traffic was during the time. Around 5 p.m. that evening, Mothman was sighted perched on top of the Silver Bridge during the rush hour. Majority of people who were there saw him on the bridge. Moments later, the bridge collapsed with 64 souls on it. 46 passed away that day and 2 were never found. So after investigation, it was found that there was a crack in one of the support rings for the chains for the bridge. I'm not really savvy in architecture nor bridges. That's the information that I found. Whether it was there and it just wasn't built correctly or just factory error, or whether it was Mothman, no one really knows. Was Mothman the cause of this tragic event? Or was he trying to warn the townspeople of their impending doom? Believe it or not, Mothman is no longer just a beloved resident of Point Pleasant, West Virginia. And honestly, I do mean beloved. They now have a museum based on the Mothman. They have a statue of the Mothman where you can actually go to a live camera and see the Mothman statue. And they have a festival each year for Mothman in the town. Honestly, the Mothman has created Point Pleasant, West Virginia, a new travel destination for a lot of people who are into supernatural and genuinely love the Mothman. But Mothman has not just been sighted in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. In 1975, there was a sighting of Mothman in Ohio. In 1981, there was 2 sightings of the Mothman in southwest Pennsylvania. In 1986, there was 1 sighting of the Mothman in Kentucky. And in 1994, there was 3 sightings in West Virginia, not in Point Pleasant. Now, mind you, these are reported sightings. These are people who actually came forward and said that they seen the Mothman. Honestly, if I was one of them and I saw the Mothman, I don't know if I'd be going to the police. So has there been more? In the past 2 years alone, there's been over 87 sightings in and around the Chicago area. The most notable one is in 2017, where a man who was staying in a nearby hotel went outside for a smoke break around 5 p.m., was just minding his business. He looked up to the Willis Tower, which was formerly known as the Sears Tower, and saw a man with wings jump off the tower and fly away. So what do you think? Do you think Mothman is just a mutant bird terrorizing people? Or do you think it's something that just we can't explain? Is Mothman still around today, or just a legend of the 1960s? I would love to hear your comments below. I will be responding to some of you and maybe throwing my own theories in there. Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, because I promise you next week's story will have you screaming. Have fun, be safe, make good choices, and I'll see you next time, weirdos.